Okay, so now we've done that bit, what we're doing is exactly the same as we did before. We just added a little bit of flat white into the mix, and we're just going around, thinned it heavily, and just touching around centers of panels and things like that. Okay, goes through. All right. And we're just making sure we've gone right the way to the edges of things. It's very annoying when you get little patches. We said about masking, but also just in areas. Make sure you do the leading edge of the tail back here without putting your finger in it like I've just done. So we just touch that in. Okay, because there again, it's a bit annoying if you've got you've left a bit down the front of the tail, and then you have to come back to respray it afterwards. So we just do those, touch them in. Remember, if you've overdone your lightning and it looks a little bit too light, okay, just go back, put some of the original colour back in, and then repatch it again. That way you get a great patchy type of finish. But there we go, we're really getting on there, just like we wanted to do. I haven't got enough to warrant cleaning, so we'll just give this a quick colour change. So literally just neat thinners in, and really what you're doing is you're getting it off the inside of the cup, the stuff that dries. You're not really worried about what's in the chamber because that will blow through with the next colour. So when you're doing a quick colour change like this, you don't have to worry too much. Now the thing is, we've got this dilemma now on the green about the two, because obviously we're going to mix a colour, and the trouble with mixing colours is it's very hard to rematch it. Okay, so we just get that up of there, paint off the side of the colour cup. Blow that through just a fraction, tiny bit more thinners just in the business end, blowing that through. Quick colour change, as easy as that. So anyway, we're saying about this colour thing. Now obviously I'd like to do the brown as last because it's going to be the darkest. If I was going to use this neat green, I'll do the green last. So really this is your point where you think, right, okay, what are we going to do with it? Are we going to go with the green? Are we not? And all things like that. So okay, this is our dilemma. This is the green that it calls out for. Now I know sometimes this don't work well on camera, okay? And this is the other green before. Now I know that's looking very blue, or certainly it looks like I'm seeing it on the camera there, it's looking very blue, but trust me, when you hold it up to a photo, so we just borrow theirs, it's a lot closer to the colour than it. Perhaps it needs a touch of green. So what we're going to do, we've got some of our little mixing pots here. So we'll give a good old shake to this one. So all we're going to do for the bases of this is pour in here, because we're not going to need gallons of this. A couple of mil just in there. Okay, then what we're going to do is we're going to take a touch of this green. Okay, and all I'm going to do is add a big brushful of green into this mix. Now the thing is, again, we can bleach this out, we can darken it, we can play with all the little colours. To tell you the truth, I'm just going to take a touch more of the green because I want to get it away. It's a very, very pale. I just want to make it a shade darker, so that's good enough for me. I'm quite happy how that is. So what we'll do, get some lids back on these. We are certainly darker than we were before, as you can see. So hopefully between the two now, we've got the right type of shape. But I want to test it first. So what we've got here is just a little bit of plastic card. Okay, and we've got our airbrush. So we're just going to pop a little bit of thinners in here, not gallons of it. Then we're going to take a brushful, 2 brushfuls just in here, mix them together. Okay, and we're just going to see what we've got down here. So we'll put it next to the other ones. Because we've got no primer on here, we just cut into air to dry it down a touch. So it's got something to grip to in a moment. And we'll go over this and try and hold this in. It's a little bit wet. And the airbrush could do with a clean before we sort of definitely go on, but if we do a bit down here as well. So if we just dry this off, you can see now, stuck. This is the type of shade we're after. That's about right. I'm quite happy with that. It's one of those things, it's really hard to see. As I'm looking at it here, it looks alright to me. but certainly as it dries a little bit darker, so we just cut to air and dry it down. Now it's not the best thing to use a bit of plastic art like this because I've got oil spots on it and goodness knows what, but as you can probably see, it's got that type of green. It's not as blue as the other one, it's certainly nothing like it is down below, so I'm quite happy with that colour. It's always nice to test if you can. Another thing, if you haven't got a bit of plastic art, don't tend to do it on papers and cardboards because it tends to absorb into it and gives you an artificially dark colour. Do it on old CDs, things like that, old yoghurt pots, anything you go. So we're going to go with the green. So for the moment, we'll just add a bit more thinners into the mix. Okay, we'll pour a bit of this in. So we'll now call this SUFA green. Okay, so we'll just pop the lid on there, and we'll pop the lid on this, keep it fresh. Okay, so we'll just give this a mix. Now, we are going to be cutting in against the other colour. Now, this is where you could come along if you wanted to and certainly use masking, anything else like that. But because I want this to be more of a bleached out look, I'm going to do it freehand. Now, as I say, you don't have to do it freehand, but when you look at aircraft in the desert, especially if they've been bleached like this one is, you're going to find you get this sort of this colour sort of fades together, and naturally I just presume that's where all the pigments really sort of come together and all the rest of it. So what we'll do, we'll check our flow for our green, and we're happy how that is, so we just stick that down there. So what we'd do, I think, if we do this wing first, I'm just checking the references of how this one is. I'll check, make sure we're all okay. So this one has actually got the dark colour with it as well. So I just work out, it just comes around here, then we've got the brown goes down to the inside. Excuse me as I talk to myself, because I'm just trying to work out this. So it's up this on, so we're just putting it on quite lightly for the moment. Okay, and it comes into here. And what we're going to do is turn it away from any painting. Because we've got some down here, we don't want to get any overspray onto it, so we're always going to shoot away from it. Okay, now it's quite a wet mix, this one. It could do with thickening up a bit, but just for the moment, we're going to go with it. And just pop that on like that. Then might as well a bit of a clean off here. Okay, so we just cut to air, drying it back. Okay, then we can look at this colour and we can have a look and see how we think it is. Now, obviously you've got various lights here. It's looking okay to me. So we're happy how that is. So the next big area where it's got it is obviously down this tail area, just down in here. And so what we'll do is we'll just angle the camera around a little bit and bring you in a little bit closer. So okay, we need to cut across this one here, so it has a sort of loop. Okay, again, two hands on here, starting away. Okay, and we're just going to curve a line in. And again, we're slightly shooting this way, away from the paint, so that way any speckling you might have won't come back onto your paintwork. So now we can just backfill. And if it's looking wet, just come away from it. But you can look at it and think, right, okay, that's good, I like it, but I've got a little bit of wet spot, so we're just going to cut to air and just knock that back. Now I'm a little bit high air pressure, so I'm just going to take this back a tad to around about 25 psi. And because it's a lower air pressure, it will enable me to get in just a little bit more. So if I just take this back just a touch. That's it. Because the air pressure is less, you've got more chance of it spitting and things like that. So if you get closer, you should be able to cut in a nice fine line. you know, and just treat everything as if it's literally a little section. Don't be thinking, well, I'm painting down big. Because you're doing freehand, keep it nice and small and tight. And don't forget, at any point we can go back and tighten it all up again. So we're just going to do up here. Just make sure we've got the right one. Okay, so this one, you've got the brown going a little bit further on, so we're not too worried about it. So what this actually does is just do this little area right here. So again, we've just got in there and we've just done that little bit. And then the next thing we've got an area just down off of this flat. So we're going to just take this little area of flat and spray that. It's looking a little bit wet, we come away, just cut to air and spray down it. Okay, now it walks up, just up here a little bit. And you can probably hear the difference in the airbrush, that it's not pushing out gallons of paint now. It's literally very little, so you can hardly hear it. So we get this to here, and it's going to swoop around, and it's going to come up here, just like this. And then it's going to, if I remember correctly, sort of swoop around and back on itself. But we're just pushing a little bit down, gently filling in this area. Try not to totally kill off any paintwork we've got. Just going to turn up the air pressure a little bit. Too much. Okay, now this walks off and then back over. But don't forget, the brown's going to be the big one. It's going to then mask all this one up and take care of it. Okay, and then it just swoops that back down here and comes back round. So we're just going to backfill this area. Okay, it just comes literally off down the side. Okay, so we're just going to fill in this little area here. Okay, looking a little bit wet, so we'll just pull away from it for the moment. Just like so. So we're just going to check both sets of references, because I've got two references on the go for this. So this is DDD. Make sure we're right. Is the sandy colour, so we do want to come just up here, just a fraction. Just up around there. Now it's looking a little bit patchy, purely because it's having a hard time covering the actual overspray, the actual pre-shading. So we're just going to turn this around here, and we'll just do this one here. So you can see. So we're going to go for this one just here. So same thing again, we're just working away from us. Couple of passes, puts in the hard edge. Okay, then again, just backfilling. What you're trying to do is, when you do your backfilling, is get rid of that hard edge line you put through, so it blends through. So start on the line and work away from it. So say it's little amounts of paint here. We're just going around, building up very, very light thin coats, so we have control, so we're not flooding it or anything else like that. If we tip it back, you might see a little bit better. So we're looking a little bit wet, just cutting to air, dry it off. And don't be too concerned about how it's looking. By the time we get some weathering onto this one, and obviously it's got a wash, got a grey bar going through it, and when the brown's on, it can really change colour. So don't be too head up if you're thinking, I don't like the colour, it's not quite right, it's too light, it's too green. Just wait until you get the brown on, then you can obviously make a decision on, no, I don't like it, it's not looking right, and you want to change it. So again, this is like a half down here, so we're going to go a little bit more. And And obviously we've got to do the air brakes and that, but they'll be easy to do because we're having them in the open position. It's not like it's a line going to carry on. So I'm not too worried about air brakes. We'll just paint them afterwards, as long as you make sure you've got some of the available colour left over. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to carry on going around all the areas on this one, just as we're doing here, exactly the same manner, and we'll get back to do the brown. Now, that's all done. As you can see, we're looking very, very nice now. I'm quite happy with that green, but as I say, it's one of those colours. Be careful with it, because when you put a brown near it, it'll probably change it. Many times, especially with greys and things like that, that you think, oh, it doesn't look too right, everything else, you put a white near it or a dark colour, completely changes it and makes it more look like grey. Okay, last colour up is the H310. Now this is the FS30219, which is your brown. So it's also the US Air Force brown as well as the Israeli colour. So good old mix with this one. Now this is pretty straightforward, but the thing we're going to have to worry about now is that because this is the last colour in, that we have to be careful and make the lines nice and sharp and everything else like that. So what we're going to do, we're just going to do a straightforward, probably about a third paint to 2/3 thinner, a little bit thinner than we've been usually spraying with. That's because we need to get the edges nice and sharp. So this way, because it's a thinner paint, it doesn't have to sort of work so hard to get it out the airbrush. We can turn down the air pressure and get closer, which will minimise the spread, okay? So what we'll do, we'll pick a nice area. Let's start up probably around the front. I'd say it's one of those tricky ones, is because obviously you guys need to see it as much as I do. Okay, so we're going to work down here. If I just bring the camera around a little bit, make it easier to see. So testing our flow. Air pressure we've got set to around about 20-22 psi, not much at all. Happy with the flow, how it's coming out. Now we know this brown is going to come in, cut into the side, around the sensors on the front and everything else like that. So it's pretty much a straightforward, just check your references how it's going to go. So what we're going to do, we're going to start off on the inside, okay, and we're just going to cut this up. A little bit of backfilling. And immediately you'll notice when you put it on, things change. To be honest, this has seemed to have gone a lot paler. You know, it looked quite green before, but now it's gone quite pale. You can probably see it there. But as I said, because it's a nice dark colour, it covers extremely well. It doesn't take much to get it off, to get it to cover all the other ones. So it's not like you're using the green and we have to do lots of layers to get it to go over. This should work very well. So what we're going to do now is basically just wrap this round up over the front. So we're just going to pull a line. Round it just round like that, which gives us our nose section. As I said, as it dries, it might dry a little bit patchy, but because this is a brown, we're going to pop back with this one with a little shade lighter brown of it, just to weather it in just a little bit. So what we're going to do, we're just going to pop round to the other side now, and this one swoops in from the back. Every now and again, come away, put it down, blow it, pull the trigger all the way back, and what that does is get rid of any build-up you might have on the end. Just in like that, and then the same thing, we're going to curve this round over the nose. All over it, just like that. And then a bit of backfilling. And we're just going to be a little bit careful over this nose section, because obviously we don't want to get overspray over everything. There we go, that one goes on there like that, and obviously we can just touch in. Over the front there. Cut into air, we'll just dry it down to have a look at it all. Now, and that might need a couple of touch-ins, but as I say, because we're going to lighten it as we go round, we don't have to worry too much about it. The other thing as well we can do, if you want to sharpen up these lines, said I want them quite faded, but you can thin your paint down, air pressure down, get really in close and really sharpen them up. But if we just show you the nose section now is all on there with the green in there, just like so. Okay, really happy how that is. So what I'm going to do now is carry on with the rest of it exactly the same manner. Then we'll come back and I'll show you about sharpening up and lightening up. Okay, so if we just bring you out a little bit, there we go. You can see we are now looking very nicely camouflaged. Okay, so what we're doing now is basically just popping around. We've got the lighter colour in and we'll go with the green and just tidying up areas. So perhaps your camo pattern's gone a little bit wonky, you've got some graininess, you know, anything you can really think of, you can just go around and tighten up with. Again, we've started with the darkest and we're working to the lightest now. That way, if there is a mistake, it's easier to go the other way. So basically we've just popped round and we've just made corrections, little ones to the camo patterns we were saying, and just making sure that everything sort of looks right, that we've got no patches, that we've got no speckling and all things like that. So we've just got one little area left to do on the wing. So all we're doing is literally airbrush is quite low and we're just taking this round just to take a little bit off, to widen up this area down here. And also we're making sure we've got no overspray on right angles. Notorious problem with phantoms and things like that. You get a right angle, doesn't matter where you seem to be shooting from, you get that little collection. I've gone around and I've just taken them out all over the place and just making sure it's all smooth, and as I say, it all just wraps around and looks right. Also, if there's any runs and speckles and things like that, we can take care of them. So I've just got this one left up here on the top of the spine. Just in like that, and that is basically done. Really happy how that's turned out. So what I'm going to do, like we were saying before, the only trouble with this paint is it does take a long time to dry. So we're going to leave it now for a couple of hours to totally go off in a nice warm room like it is here, okay, and then we can unmask it and start to do all the metal work, because we've got to do metal work obviously around the exhaust, and then underneath we've got various metal areas as well, around the gun area and things like that. So we can get those done, and then we can start adding things like, as I say, the little bits and pieces on that we haven't done yet, and painting them up to the correct colour. Alrighty, so we're all nicely completely dry. And we've come out really, really well. Really happy how the paintwork is. It's faded in, and by the time it gets a wash on it and some decals on there, I think we'll really look the part. So okay, the next thing we've got to do is a couple of little metal areas. So as you can probably see here, we've got them masked up. This one, for some reason, is like a stainless steel, very shiny type of colour, as is the rear ring round the back. Now, I've been, over the sort of years, we've been using different types of metal effects. So obviously we've been using, grabbing bottles off, we've got Alclads. As we said before, the trouble with Alclads is they're great, but they're extremely fragile to the touch. If you touch them, it's very easy to wear through, you leave fingerprints, and also the surface has to be pretty much perfect to get a good result. But apart from that, it's absolutely lovely. Don't get me wrong, I like using it. The other one we can actually use, and we talk about a lot, is Citadel paints. Now, Citadel do a range of the Games Workshop colour ones. Their metals are absolutely beautiful. The great thing with them is you can hand paint them and you don't get any brush marks at all. It is really, really nice stuff to work with. And to be honest, these are my first bottles I ever bought, which is probably about 5 years ago now, and I've almost run out because these have to be thinned about 90%, okay, with acrylic thinners to get it through your airbrush. So for, you know, actually worth their money, they're very, very good. Obviously, you've got your standard metal colours. These here, just getting them out here from Tamiya. So obviously you've got their ones. Trouble with theirs is I find the fleck of the actual paintwork itself tends to be a little bit gritty. Also, it goes everywhere. It goes airborne, this stuff, when you're airbrushing it, and it makes an incredible mess. Okay, so your other options are, we've been using recently, are the Guns range do a range of buffable metals. They're very, very nice to use and everything else, but I do find them a little bit clogs your airbrush, and if you get a spit mark, it's a pain because obviously you want it as a metal finish and it leaves a little glob. Probably that could be some of my fault, and perhaps if I was to use a filter for when we're actually pouring it out of the bottle and probably a bit more mixing, I could get around the trouble. Latest one I've been using from Hans, one of the team sent me some of the actual Model Master. These are their metallizer lacquers. Now again, these are lacquer based, so they're very similar to the Alclads, but the great thing with these is they're buffable. So if I show you what you get on our little test piece of card here, you can probably see we've got them here. Now actually what we've got down here, this is, just remember what colours they are. We've got titanium, which is this side here. Okay, now you might notice, and the other one is stainless steel. Okay, now you might notice when you catch them in the light, you've got two halves, and this is because I've buffed the other half. So grabbing an old Pro Modelers t-shirt, if I show you here, what you do, you basically come along and you just give them a rub, and literally you buff them up. And they're as hard as nails, and they stick and give you a very nice shiny surface. And that's the great thing with them. You can put them on and you think, oh, they're a little bit dull, a little bit flat. Give them a polish round and they really come to life. Now, because we're using lacquer base, you've got to use different thinners. We need lacquer thinners or cellulose thinners for this. So we've got some here that I've been using for doing the actual sanding and filling and things like that. So what we've done, we've masked up, as you can see, front and rear. So we're going to use a bit of food wrap or cling film, depending where you are in the world. Okay, now the reason you're thinking, why has he got this on the go, is because it is a very quick and cheap way of doing a little bit of masking. So if you want to mask up, for instance, we're going to do round here, we're just going to pop it around the model. And I'm making a little bit of a hash over this, I will admit, but all we do is put a small hole in the back. Okay, and then we can open it up around the area we're going to do. Okay, now that should be okay. I'll just make a bit of a hash over this wingtip, admittedly, because it should have covered the entire wingtip, making that all nice. Okay, so if we just feed that round like that, then what you can do, you can get another little bit of tape. He says, looking for all his tapes. Okay, just to secure them in place. The end of the tape. Flip this over. Okay, and what this is really doing at the end of the day, we are literally just protecting our paintwork from overspray, because if we get silver onto the camo, oh, it's a nightmare. So you don't want to be having any of that particularly. So we're just going to stick this down around like this. And I must thank Andy Mullen, a guy called Andy Mullen. He's very good at doing naval aircraft. Thanks a lot, Andy. You taught me this little trick a few years ago now, and I still use it all the time for doing complex masking jobs like this. It is brilliant. So okay, we've got a bit of that on. We can pop a bit of 40mm on the back in a moment, and then the same with this one. What we're going to do very carefully is literally just cut out like a surgeon, a little hole. And I keep telling everyone how great these scissors are, and they cut through everything apart from it would appear food wrap. Okay, bear with me. So you make a hole like a surgeon would to get to his wound or whatever he's doing, and then we're just going to retape the outer bits down so obviously we don't get any overspray going wandering off. Okay, so we're just going to stick that one there. Just make sure we're good. And do down here. Just like so. Now, to be honest, I normally don't do this, but I will for this particular one. He says, but he can't find it off the top of it. Here it is. We're just going to use a slightly small colour cut, okay, because we're only using small amounts of this paint, okay. So we've just popped on here the 2mm colour cut instead of the 5. So we're going to use the stainless steel. Okay, now this stuff is like Alclad, it's like water, so it's very, very thin and it doesn't last 2 minutes in your airbrush. Okay, so what we want to do is just make sure you get any drips and runs off, because you don't want going to the front of the the paintwork. And then what we do is bring you in a bit, just like so. Okay, so I'll bring this around here. So we just check our flow. Now, to be honest, we want to turn the air pressure down quite a bit because this stuff is very, very thin. So okay, we're shooting this around about 15 to 20 psi. I've got a little bit of a run on with the trigger. That's it. And then all we're going to do is very, very lightly just blow this over. Now keep it light, don't be flooding it, because as soon as we flood this, we've got a few problems because we really don't want to do that. So we're just going to go around just like this. Make sure you got in from all the angles. Okay, just like that, dead simple. I'm going to do the same on the rear ring now.